Okay guys, welcome back. Today I'm playing this game called Kerbal Space Program. It's really good, it's where you like build rockets and stuff. And today I'm going to be showing you a tutorial on how to get to the moon in Kerbal Space Program. How to build a rocket and fly it to the moon. So yeah, let's get on with the building. Okay, so we're going to pick our lander can. I think this is the Mark II lander can. And we're going to stick some aerodynamicness and a bit of RCS fuel. Now, one thing that I did very wrong in this video is I put lots of RCS fuel, but I did not put any RCS thrusters. So that is something that you would do if you were building this rocket for yourself to try and get to the moon. I'm just swapping this out for a smaller RCS part here, because that one is a bit over the top. You would put some RCS on the top of your lander and on the bottom of your lander, just so it makes it a lot easier to control it while you're coming in for your final descent. So right now I'm just adding the engines, which are going to be fed fuel from that main fuel tank in the middle there. We've got a little bit more those little RCS things. It won't let you place any aerodynamic nose cones though, because of that lump on the landing can, which is slightly annoying. So the RCS is on top of it. So we'll just put some struts on there just to keep it a bit more stable while we're landing. And of course we're going to need some landing legs, just put one on each engine. That seems good. You always want to have the landing legs on the part of the rocket that's furthest out from the middle of your lander, because that'll give you a largest kind of distance from the center of the rocket covering the ground, so that it's a lot more stable when you land. Okay, so now we're going to have the main kind of orbit stage. This will be what we use when we're coming in to land on the moon. Well, coming in to get our orbit of the moon correct. Which is just going to consist of one main fuel tank, three small ones, and some atomic motors. Now the reason I use the atomic motors is just because they are so efficient. They use hardly any fuel for the amount of power they give you. Okay, so what I'm doing now is just the main part that's going to actually get us off Kerbin. This is the part that has to be the most powerful, obviously, because that's what you're going to need the most. Well, you need lots of power to get off Kerbin, because it's got quite a high gravity. So we're going to have 7. Is that 7? Yeah, 7 of those mainsail engines there. And just strut these up a lot, because that is a very unstable part of it, having the 5 mainsails with just one of those decouplers. So you do not want that to happen, because they will just force themselves inward. Okay, so now we're going to do the staging. Basically, what I want to happen with this staging is we want the outer, these outer fuel tanks are going to decouple from the mid-central one, but they're going to do it 2 at a time from the opposite sides. So the 2 on the outside will decouple, then another 2, then another 2, and we'll be left with the central piece. Now this is kind of a regular, kind of easy way to get out of Kerbin, because, well, it makes a lot of sense, because you need the most thrust when you're at the bottom, just taking off, because you'll be able to, you're lower down in the atmosphere, so there's much more air resistance. Okay, so it took me a while to get all these fuel lines right, which is annoying, but I'm just sorting out the staging of those decouplers. This will just take a bit longer to build, and it means that you have to constantly be going between stages while you're taking off, but so, apart from that, it's a good way of getting away from Kerbin. So those 2 decouplers I just moved down there, they are going to be the first to decouple. then that one, and the opposite one around here, which is that one. You can tell which one it is because when you hover over it in the staging, it gets highlighted on the rocket. So the last set of fuel tanks that decouple, they're going to feed into the main central fuel tank, which means that when we decouple all of them, we'll still be left with a full 3 fuel tanks up there. And one last thing, we are just going to add some solid fuel boosters. We're going to add the smaller solid fuel boosters, because even the smaller ones run out just before the main. Just after the main fuel tanks in the middle, so you have to you'll be carrying dead weight effectively for a bit there. So now we need to reinforce this decoupler, because otherwise you'll get a lot of wobble around these decouplers. So we're doing that just with a little strut, one of those girders, and then the strut things. Also do it with this decoupler, which isn't as vital because there's less mass above it, but it will still help a lot with stability. Now I'm just checking all my staging is in fact in the right place, which it wasn't. So I'm moving those rockets down because we want everything, so the solid fuel boosters and all those mainsails, to go right at the beginning. Yeah, so that is our rocket. Let's launch it. Okay, so we're throttling up, turning on our SAS. Now what I'm doing now is I'm going around and locking all the gimballing on all the outer engines. I could have made an action group for this, but I forgot. So basically the gimballing is, it means the engines can direct their thrust to help turn the rocket, but if you have 7 of them doing that all at the same time, it does create a bit of wobble because they're all kind of competing with each other. So that's the first set of fuel tanks, and those solid fuel boosters decoupled now. So once those have run out, we'll decouple the next set. Okay, we just hit 10 kilometers, so we're going to do a gravity turn to about 45 degrees. And if you see on your nav ball the little degree signs, you want to get it to 90 degrees, which will give you an equatorial orbit, so that will match the moon's. Doesn't really matter if it's not perfect, because you can correct for that. It just makes it a lot easier, and it means your journey will be more efficient. Okay, so that's the set of fuel tanks decoupled now, and we've got a pretty high apoapsis, so we're just going to cut our engines and make a maneuver to just see when we want to burn. When you're orbiting Kerbin, you have to make sure that your periapsis is above 70,000 meters, so 70 kilometers. Because if you're is that 70 kilometers? I don't know. Because if you're any lower than that, then your periapsis will be in the atmosphere, and you will get resistance from the air, so you won't stay in an orbit. This is the time when I realise suddenly that I don't have any RCS on this humongous ship, and it takes me ages to turn round. But I do manage it, so it's all good. Yeah, so just lining myself up with the blue triangle, I guess, which is the manoeuvre. And you can see in the bottom where it says node in T minus 35 seconds. That means we have to switch on our engines in 35 seconds. And above that it says estimated burn 37 seconds. So really, if you're doing this, if you wanted to do this accurately, you would actually do your estimated burn. You would actually start burning at if you had a estimated burn time of 30 seconds. You would want to start burning at 15 seconds from your node, because with the maneuver it registers that as an instant bit of power from your rocket, But obviously you can't do that, so you'd want to split it between before and after the node, and that'll give you the most accurate. So that is a bit of an odd orbit, but it is equatorial, so we shouldn't have any trouble with that. Now we're going to do our maneuver that is hopefully going to get us to the moon. So you want to see what direction the moon's moving in, and then you want to put your maneuver so that it is it's going to point your orbit to where the moon's going to be in the future, somewhere in the near future. So that gave us a moon encounter. I mean, mun encounter, I guess. Whatever. So now, if we do that, we will get to the moon, and we will be part of the moon's gravity, which is good. So yeah, we don't have to burn for another 5 minutes, so I'm just speeding up time here. Bring us down to... I did that a little bit late there, but it doesn't really matter, I suppose. And now our orbit's expanding, and there was our moon encounter. We just need to do a little bit more prograde to get that to work perfectly. There we go, that's it. We can delete that maneuver now, and we are going to eject that main rocket thing. Even though it's still got a little bit of fuel in, it's just so annoying having to turn with that stupidly long ship and no RCS. So we can speed up time a little bit now. And when we hit our Kerbal escape, we will see that we are now going round the moon. So we want to do a little bit of a retrograde just to get that so that we actually hit the moon. Now, one thing that I did realise with this ship is that the amount of fuel that I'm feeding these atomic motors with is very over the top. You could do this with a lot less fuel in that stage. You could probably actually adapt this ship to be a ship that could return to Kerbin from the moon, just by taking a lot of fuel out of this current stage and putting it into your landing stage, because you'll have saved a bit of weight from this stage. So that should be fine. So just getting a little bit closer to the moon now by burning retrograde. Let's see. Those atomic engines do tend to overheat a little bit, but I've never had some actually explode on me. Right now I'm just trying to get this so that it's aligned with the light side of the moon, because one thing I didn't do in this mission as well is I didn't put any landing lights on the lander, so I would much prefer to land on the light side of the moon, so I don't have to do anything like that. So just speeding up time a bit here just to get a little bit closer. Now what I do with this, because I had so much spare fuel, I decided I was going to keep slowing myself down even when I was very high up. Just so I wanted to use up as much of this fuel as I could, really. Because otherwise it's kind of a waste. I mean, it will save fuel on the landing stage anyway. Just slightly, I suppose. So we're still at about 400 meters per second, but it is going down very fast, which is good. Alright, we're slowing down to 300 meters per second, and just keep slowing down with this even though we're still very high up, just because we've got so much fuel in this stage. It really doesn't matter, to be honest. Okay, so we're down to 100 meters per second. we are just going to cut our engines and speed up time a bit to get a little bit closer. And our retrograde is almost on the dot that is up. So, well, that sounded philosophical. The dot that is up. So, basically, when you want to land, you want your retrograde marker to be right at the top of the blue side of the nav ball, because that'll mean you are going down onto the moon, not sideways and down, which is good. Because if you hit it while moving sideways, it won't be good. Nice shot there with our super awesome rocket with wasted RCS and stuff. Now, another thing I would have changed if I do this again is I wouldn't have put the SES module on the lander. I'd probably have put it somewhere underneath this orbit stage, because you really don't need an SAS on a lander. I mean, it's quite useful having it on this kind of stage when you're just burning, to get to the moon and stuff like that, but you really don't need it on the lander, so it's just a wasted weight, really. Okay, we're down to 80,000 meters above the moon, and we're going at 80 meters per second. That's pretty cool. 6,000. So we are going down still reasonably faster than 20 meters per second. Okay, we're slowing down. Nearly stopped there. You really don't need to go that slow when you're still at this altitude. So I just keep them on the lowest. We're very low down there, and that should be fine. Okay, we're going back up to about 50 meters per second. That's a good speed for this kind of altitude, 50 meters per second. That should be fine. And we've ejected that and gone on to our landing stage. Now, I would have kept that going for a little bit longer because of the amount of fuel it's got, but you don't really want to be ejecting something when you're really close to the surface, because it just doesn't. Sometimes it might explode or something like that. Bad stuff. Now, the reason I keep flicking to the cockpit view is that measure of height there is not accurate for the moon's surface, whereas the altimeter inside the cockpit is accurate for the moon. That one is, if you're using the Mark II lander can, it is the one on the left that looks like an altimeter. So just coming in for our landing, and we have landed on the moon. So we're going to end this tutorial off here. We might have some other KSP videos, but they will come later.